Hey everybody, Alex Mitchakes here, coming to you guys live from the lovely cutting room of Mr. Ground Studios here in Dallas, Texas. And today I'm going to be talking about some more tone talk tips on how I can help you guys as a session guitarist sound better at home, on stage, or in the studio. Today we're going to be checking out some of my very special tone talk tips on finding your own sound. So there's no one-size-all method to finding your own signature guitar sound. Every musician has their own personal preferences for doing so. More than likely, those ideas about guitar tone will change over time and evolve and maybe even adapt into something else entirely. I always get asked from players of all ages and skill levels on how they can go from sounding like they're copying someone else and giving homage to someone else to being able to sound like themselves, sound like they're free on their instrument. So I wanted to give some tips and some of my personal advice on what I think will help you develop your own unique sound. So, number one, and maybe most important, get creative with your use of guitar effects. Using guitar effects is a great way to transform very, very simple guitar parts into something very otherworldly and full of power. But before you start making a giant pedal board, you need to ask yourself a few questions. First, think about what is only crucial and essential for getting your tone. Don't just load up on pedals because it looks cool to have a pedal board the size of a door. Your back will thank you. More importantly, my back will thank you because I don't want to carry your stuff. But two, I know from experience, I used to have a pedal board the size of a car door. And I would carry it around everywhere to gigs, and I really only used 4 things on it. Sometimes for certain songs, I'd tap in other things. But if you're not using it, don't carry it around. Get yourself, pick exactly what you need. Your life will be so much easier. You won't have to worry about complex signal routing. Life will just be great. Usually, most players only need a wah-wah pedal, some kind of distortion-based gain effect to push your guitar signal over to the next level. You know, some way to get some kind of crunchy sound. That's really why you want distortion in the first place. Then most players want some kind of way to modulate or shake the sound, give it some kind of dimension this way. And then lastly, delay and reverb. Some kind of way to get echo, some kind of way to create some kind of space with your guitar tone so it doesn't just sound so bland. But that's just 4 things, and you have that and you can create a whole symphony with it. So I recommend starting with just one of each of these styles of effects. So a wah-wah, some kind of distortion or overdrive, a modulation effect like a chorus or a tremolo, and then maybe check out a delay or a reverb, something to give your guitar sound some kind of space. But see how many different sounds you can get out of one pedal. See, really embrace that. What can I do with just this? I promise if you start thinking this way, you'll really get a whole wealth of creative sounds at your disposal without having to spend a bunch of money. It's a really great way to think about how you can get great sounds with the use of guitar effects. I usually start this project, if I'm going out and trying a new pedal or trying something, I'll turn it literally all the way up. Most pedals are old transistor-based designs, and those pedals, particularly dirt boxes in particular, don't work very well unless you max the unit. You're not giving them all the power to make those transistors deliver all the juicy goodness and distortion. So I will often just turn it up and then slowly go back from all the way until I find what I want to do. So if you're thinking of, this going clockwise is all of the way up, start backing it slowly until you find what you want. Never go from 0 up. The reason why is we know what that sounds like. We know what nothing sounds like. That's before you kick the box in with your foot, the stomp box. So always see what is this thing doing all the way, and it's not so subtle form. And then see how maybe if I want it subtle, I can always turn the knob back. But see what happens when you go all the way, just to see, is that usable? Is that something I can use? Just because other people don't do that with their effects doesn't mean that's not something you should be trying, Now, while there's no strict way on how you should set your effects pedals, or not thinking of them in an optimum signal flow can actually hinder your overall guitar tone. Okay? So what I mean by that is sometimes these things need to be in a particular order, not necessarily because your settings are off, But because they're not in the order, your signal is not arriving from point A, the guitar, through all your little boxes on the floor, out through another cable out through the amplifier. If you don't have that optimum in the middle, you're going to be losing some low-end frequencies, you're going to be losing some high-end frequencies, so overall you might not have the most crisp tone like when you started. So what I like to do for my signal flow is I like to think of, this is my favorite formula, I use this on every pedal board build to ever build out, but this is a great way to help you think about how to use effects, right? So if I always start with my wah-wah, I put that in the first position. Wah placement is always up to the player, but I find using it first allows me to use everything else more effectively. After that, you want to go gain effects. So what I do with gain effects, this is any kind of fuzz, any kind of distortion box, any kind of overdrive. But what I do when I put them in order is I put them in order from highest gain to lowest gain. And this gives me the most effective signal flow going in my gain staging, okay? So figure out what is your most gnarly pedal, put that right after the wall, and then slowly step down. After that, you want to do modulation effects. This can be anything from choruses, flangers, tremolos, things of that nature. I put all of that after distortion effects. I usually will go chorus and then into my tremolo. I never put tremolo before chorus. Chorus always goes first. After that, then you do all your time-based effects, which would be like your delays, and then reverbs. At the very end, I always put a tuner. And the reason is if you're on stage and you want to check really quick your signal flow, you can just go pop and tap the tuner on. And if the light turns on the tuner, you know signal is coming from the guitar all the way through however many boxes you have on the floor, all the way to the end of the chain. There's not a break in the chain. That's how I check every time before I start my, if I'm playing a gig, or even if I'm playing a session, that's how I test everything's working. So, number 2. This is another really important point that I think you should check out, and that's knowing how to use your different pickups on your guitar and knowing how to use your volume and tone control knobs while you play. One of the most important things here while playing is to use these controls live while you play the guitar. Doing this can help you get subtle changes in mood and in texture with your overall playing. So I'm not tap dancing with my feet through a bunch of different effects pedals for every little part. I'm usually just rocking this volume knob and adjusting my pickup switch. If I want to roll off some high end from my guitar signal, for example, I will take this bottom tone knob, like on this Telecaster, and just start all the way up as maximum tone I'm getting out of my pickup. If I start to roll it back this way, what actually starts to happen is I'm shaving off high end out of that treble. So if I'm finding this back pickup here, this flat pole on this 52 Blackguard Telecaster is wrong, then I might shave off some of that treble if it's too harsh in the room, so I don't have to go in and fiddle with my amp later. If I'm liking my overall amp tone on my other 2 pickups, but when I swap here, it's a little brash, a little harsh, a little bright, I'll pull a little bit out just to smooth it out a little bit. That way I don't have to go and touch my amp. It's a great trick. Some effects and some guitar combinations, actually if you set the amp high and hot, you can go from distortion to sort of distorted to medium distortion to clean, all with the moving your volume pedal without having to stomp on pedals at all. So this can really get to where you can focus on the music at hand that you're making and not think about, hey, is my compressor on? Hey, is my clean boost on? Hey, is my clon on? Hey, you don't have to start thinking about all of these things being on. You can immerse yourself in the experience of making music, and in my opinion, that always helps you make better music when you're engaged with it. So this is something I do all the time. Now, depending on your guitar of choice, you can have as many as 3 pickups on your electric guitar. You can have 2, like I have here on this Telecaster. By the way, this Telecaster was the very first design Leo Fender ever had for the solid body electric guitar. Originally, 2 pickups, there it is. Looks like a piece of wood, because that's what it is. But some guitars have a single pickup. They might just have a bridge pickup. So really you need to think about how many options am I having with my switching and my selector switch. Do I just want 1? Do I want 2? Do I want 3? Do I want them to be single coils? Do I want them to be humbuckers? Single coils are what I have here on this Telecaster. Single coils are just a single, you can see here on this bridge, it's a single magnet here. It's a single piece. And they have a more bell-like chimey tone when they're clean. When they're overdriven, they sound very articulate and very great, but they can also have some drawbacks. Sometimes, depending on the guitar and the pickup and how old the guitar is, it can have 60 cycle hum, which is a thing for single coils that happens a lot. It's just a very low-pitched hum that happens when you're not playing. This can annoy a lot of people, and that's why some people will go and check out humbuckers. That's why some people will check out humbuckers like on this Gibson Les Paul. Humbuckers were actually invented in the mid-50s. I want to say about 54, 55, 56, 57. Maybe 57. I think 57. I don't know. Joe Bonamassa, if you're watching, text me and tell me, which is it? I don't know. But humbuckers were invented as a way to get rid of this 60 cycle hum. It was something that Gibson really prided themselves on at the time when they were going head to head with Fender in the vintage guitar wars in the 50s. But what a humbucker also does is it's two singles put together. So what happens when you use humbuckers is you're doubling the output from the guitar. This can excite certain amplifiers in a different way, like Marshalls or Fender Deluxe reverbs. So consider if this is something you want before you start choosing your guitar when you're defining your sound. If I wanted to do more slash type guitar tones, I would definitely choose a Gibson Les Paul because the humbuckers are going to have more output. It's going to help push that Marshall into a more saturated distortion that I could get with a single coil guitar like my Telecaster. So going back here with my Telecaster, these have two pickups, but one is primarily the bass pickup. We call that the rhythm pickup. That might give me a bassier, sometimes woollier tone. Great for rhythm. Also great for really fat, saturated leads. And then I have a bridge pickup back here. Traditionally, the bridge pickup is a lot more biting, a lot more bright. You get a lot more twang out of it because it's closer to the metal bridge. So if you know how the physics of this work, you can start deciding, hey, if I want to make my own sound, maybe I'm chasing that thing. It might be having which pickup is in what position might be a really, really important part of the process. So think about that. Hey, so third, properly intonate your instrument with a guitar tech. Properly intonating your instrument is one of the most overlooked things that guitar players do. We love to polish them, we love to clean them, but we won't make sure they're intonated and in tune. If you don't know what it is, I recommend going to your local guitar tech and asking them to see what they know. But for here in Dallas, Texas, I think the best techs in town are at Texas Guitar Workshop in Dallas, Texas. The owner, Kenny Kranzo, is friends with Stevie Ray Vaughan. He's a really, really stand-up guy, an amazing guitar tech, and he even builds his own guitars. This is one of them. He built this for me. It's a 52 Blackguard style guitar. It has a real flat pole piece pickup in the bridge. It's pretty rad. But if I didn't have this instrument intonated, when I'm playing chords, none of my chords will be in tune. None of my notes will be in tune. I'll be 20% sharp or flat. So have someone like that address that, and your playing will be consistent every time you pick up the guitar. It'll always be in tune. That's really important. Hey, number 4, don't forget the strings. Changing your guitar strings regularly will help keep your instrument in tip-top shape. Most players don't think about changing their strings that often, and that's something that actually damages your guitar in the long run. Old, corroded, dirty, nasty guitar strings will cut through your frets on your guitar like little mini buzzsaws and create these things called, what we call here, at least at the shop I work at, vampire marks on your frets. It takes the parabola, the curve off the fret, and this will throw your guitar out of tune like nobody's business. Inconsistent as hell. So I recommend having your tech intonate the guitar, make sure the frets are fret milled and dressed properly, and then change your strings every 3 to 4 weeks. If you're someone like me and you're playing that same guitar and just burning through it, maybe go up a string gauge because that thicker core wire will take a lot longer to wear out. The strings I like to use are DR Blues. I've been using these since 2010, I believe. I've never gone back since I've gotten these. I've tried D'Addario, Ernie Ball. These are it for me. Tony from DR, they make these by hand the old school way. These are vintage style strings made out of nickel. They sound absolutely amazing if you're playing blues, rock and roll, country, jazz. I think they're great for all styles. These are the best strings. The good news also about changing your strings more frequently is that you'll wear the frets out less. This will save you more money in the long term for taking care of your guitar because you won't have to come in for really expensive fret jobs on your guitar, to keep it playing well. So I really recommend changing your strings often. a great way towards getting another great guitar tone might just be a pack of strings away. For roughly $5 to $7, you can explore a wide range of different guitar tones just by changing the string material or manufacturer. Different manufacturers have different recipes for how they wind their strings. Different string makers also use different materials when making it. So these all sound different. So feel free, if you're getting real bored with how you sound, try a different pack of strings if you haven't settled on something like I have with Happiness. Just start experimenting, see what happens. You tried nickel one time, try flat wounds the next time. You don't like thin strings, go up to a bigger one and see what happens. I promise, once you hit the nail on the head, you'll be so happy, it'll make you change your strings more because it'll feel better. So, number 4, use high quality grade audio cables in your guitar rig. This will preserve your guitar sound and make you sound great overall. I hate watching students coming in with $4,000 electric guitars and then using a little cheap $5 cable to plug into your amplifier. Come on guys, spend the extra money, get a better cable, it'll last longer, they won't crap out on you, and I mean I've had this cable for maybe 5 years and it's still going strong, never failed on me. You'll really want some highly shielded cables that transfer audio signal in pristine quality from your guitar to your amplifier. You'll experience more high-end and more low-end. You'll feel like you're getting for the first time, the full range of what your guitar is able to do. Remember, if you buy garbage cables, ultimately the sound that comes back out of your amp could be garbage. It could just be this cable. So I recommend going to somebody like Matt Tapp at Sabre Cable in Austin, Texas. I've been using Sabre Cable since I was about 18 years old. Every pedal build, every guitar I use, always a Sabre Cable that I plug into. They sound the best to my ear. It's what I've always used. Call them up and see how he can help you. I really think getting one of these or getting a few of them will ultimately make you sound better in the long run. And number 5, my last tip, remember, have fun. If you're not having fun when you're making music, you're missing the point. It's not supposed to be a work. It's not supposed to be a chore. It's supposed to be something that draws you in with happiness every time you pick up the instrument. So if going through all this is making you unhappy because you're not liking the sound you're getting, check out some of my tips, and I really think even if you just do 1 out of the 5, you'll start noticing a huge difference in your overall guitar tone, guys. All right, I'm Alex Mitchakes. I'm going to get out of here tonight and calling it a night, guys. Be sure to check out Mitchakes Music on Facebook and Instagram and our YouTube channel. I'm going to be coming at you guys weekly with more Tone Talk tips from a session guitar player on how you can sound better on stage, at home, or in the studio. All right, guys. Peace. See you later.